Hey, welcome to the channel. I'm on the road, obviously not in the studio, but we have a video that has been circulating of a Ukrainian F-16. I'll put it up right here, and we're going to dive into that. I'll give you my thoughts on how this attack was possibly prosecuted and really the challenges that this pilot faced in going out to do it. By far, this is the cheapest I've seen an attack drone taken out when we talk about utilizing AIM-120s, AIM-9Xs, and even the AGR-20, which we'll dive into some of those aspects a little later on as well. But first, let's look at the context of what has transpired, or what we know has transpired. And then again, hang around because we're going to dive into that video breakdown in detail, and I'll give you my perspective on it. So first, it's February 9th as I record this, and this video began going viral on social media channels yesterday. It shows a Ukrainian F-16 gunning, or rather utilizing its cannon, 20mm M61 Vulcan rotary cannon. As a fighter pilot, often referred to as turning the chainsaw on. Anytime you turn the chainsaw on, it was a good day. Now, the F-16 is capable of carrying 510 rounds, and that doesn't really sound like a lot, or maybe it does sound like a lot, but it's not. You get about 5 seconds on the trigger pull, and in the F-16, this usually equates to 2 bursts. So 1 potato, 2 potato, you're off the gun, and then you got 1 more of those left. You can't just hold it down. You'll burn the cannon up. I wouldn't say ask me how I know. I've heard stories of guys who just employed the entire 510 rounds and burns the cannon up. So typically you're expecting 2 bursts out of this cannon. Now the drone that was taken down appears to be Shahed 136. This is the Iranian variant, or Geran-2, the Russian variant, which is a Russian kamikaze drone, and it's the most heavily utilized, one we've seen most heavily utilized in this Ukrainian conflict, going after cities and infrastructures. We've also seen it used against Israel, as well as in the Red Sea, and other Iranian proxy forces have utilized this. Now, it's relatively small, especially when we talk about shooting it down with an F-16. It's just over 11 feet long, or 3.5 meters, and a short wingspan of 8 feet, or 2.5 meters. So standing on the ground, standing next to this might appear large to a human, but again, when we're talking about this type of attack that's being prosecuted, you now have to put yourself in the pilot's eyes of picking up a relatively small target that is painted similar to the landscape, such as dark trees or the snow there. So again, this is a rough thing to pick up. When we talk speed, look at about 115 miles an hour or 185 kilometers for everyone else in the world that uses metrics, but for pilots, 100 knots. And when we talk about strafing in the F-16, you're doing this between 350 and a little over 400 knots to start with. Ultimately, this is a poor man's cruise missile, and they can produce a lot of them. And we've done other videos talking about the problem set this presents in modern warfare, the swarm effect, the mass effect, being able to take these down, and taking these down with AIM-120s, the Advanced Medium Range Air-to-Air Missile, which is a radar-guided missile carried on NATO fighters, US fighters, or infrared missiles such as the AIM-9. Those are not cheap, and we don't have a ton of them, despite the fact that Raytheon is producing more and more of these each year because the demand is just so high. Now we're going to jump into this video here in a second. The only other way that we've really seen these drones being taken out recently is with the AGR-20, and that's the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System. We've broken it down on a few other videos. Really hailing back to the day of Vietnam, rocket pods, these now have been highly modified and tested and integrated into both the F-15E Strike Eagle and the F-16. Laser-guided rockets that are about $15,000-ish a piece, so still expensive, but when we compare it to million-dollar missiles, it's a drop in the bucket. So let's take a look at that video. I'll give you my thoughts on it. I mean, first, what a wild time, the fact that you hear these drones buzzing overhead and you come outside to film it. I can't imagine what that environment's like living in. Got him. Did you hear that little... That's where the chainsaw nickname comes from, but that is the cannon firing off that F-16. Obviously, the bullets are going pretty fast, faster than the speed of sound, so that's why there's the delay there. Let's watch that one more time. All right, a couple thoughts on this attack. One, I think incredibly challenging, as I've already alluded to. Low altitude, so very dangerous. But first, just looking at the landscape. Snow-covered Ukraine, you have a drone that is gray or white in color against a snow-covered earth, trees that have no leaves, so it's dark. All this is going to be this kind of a similar color and tone. So how was this F-16 pilot able to shoot down the drone? It wasn't just as simple as see it roll in, turn and point. This is a drone that, again, might be moving upwards of 90 miles an hour. It's not moving slow. So you're going to need to utilize some of the sensors on the F-16 in order to cue and then give the pilot a cue inside the HUD and the gun reticle in order to be able to employ the gun. So first, probably had to start with a radar lock, finding this drone on the radar, locking into that. Now, I believe all F-16s in Ukraine are utilizing the sniper pod. They might have lightning pods or maybe even another variation. But from what I've seen on open source, they're utilizing sniper pods. The F-16's radar, once you have that lock in an air-to-air mode, you can cue your targeting pod. The radar is going to provide that data to the targeting pod that automatically slews and shows the radar lock in the field of view for the targeting pod. So when you look down, you can seeing what your radar is looking like. When you're doing air to ground, you're utilizing that targeting pod to look at buildings, look at people, look at vehicles. If you were going to strafe or drop some type of ordnance on a building or need to generate coordinates, that's how you would do it. The targeting pod has a laser which can generate coordinates and lays weapons into targets. But in the air-to-air version, you can also, again, look out and see what your radar is locked at. Where your naked eye might only be able to see a couple miles, now you'll have a high definition, either infrared version or TV version, a black and white version video of what your radar is locked onto. Now, the key piece here is this will now feed into the pilot's heads-up display, or if they're wearing a helmet, they'll have additional data in their helmet. So now if you're the F-16 pilot that has this radar locked, you have it locked in the targeting pod, you can utilize your helmet to look outside. Your helmet is going to actually put a green diamond, or depending on the helmet, it's going to put symbology over top that radar lock so you can look out and visually acquire that target. Now, doing a strafing maneuver, this is a lot of visual. There are ranges, there are altitudes, and rules of thumb you utilize for this. Where this pilot now is probably maneuvering into a wheel or an orbit above, high above this target, planning on rolling in rather than doing a low attack. Now, the Ukrainian environment's a little bit different. I don't know if they're actually able to prosecute from high altitude. I think if you fly high altitude, or I use the term high loosely, flying at a medium altitude is pretty risky. It's a very dense integrated air defense network. There's a lot of threats out there for the F-16 that they just can't be cruising around for a Sunday stroll. But if you're able to prosecute this attack from a tail aspect, moving in the direction or slightly off direction from this drone, it's going to allow you to make the pass and strafe this. You don't want to attack it from the side, because if it's moving across and you just happen to miss, you got one shot to hit it. Versus if you attack and you roll down somewhere on azimuth or slightly off azimuth, depending on where you are, it's going to give you just an extra potato or two in order to line up and shoot this. And then if we look at the finish here,
Yeah.
Altitude-wise, this drone, again, appears to be just over the treetops. And as the F-16 comes into view, obviously very low. Now, it is a larger plane, so it might appear to be lower. There's going to be some parallax errors there, but we're really splitting hairs at this point when we're talking about the altitude that this attack was prosecuted. Now, for the F-16, doing a strafe maneuver, finishing at these altitudes is not uncommon. In fact, like a low-angle strafe could take you down to 75 feet above the ground. Rather spicy, but finishing this somewhere above 1,000 feet above ground level, ballparkish, is where you're going to be on this attack. Ultimately, strafing moving vehicles is not something that is uncommon to the F-16. Something that's going 90 miles an hour would probably present a few more challenges, assuming this drone is at top speed, or even 75% or 50% of its top speed. It's moving pretty quick and would be a challenging target to hit. And again, I think especially when we look at just the environment, this is not a vehicle going down a dirt road that's kicking up dust that's very easy to look out the window and see. This is a small object that's cruising along the treetops that I think would be fairly challenging. But I'll give this Ukrainian F-16 pilot some credibility because that would be a challenging one. So thanks for hanging around. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And again, if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.